Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Lauren McLemore, and I'm the Associate Editor of Gemstones for National Jeweler. I'm pleased to welcome you to the latest episode of My Next Question, National Jeweler and Jewelers of America's co-branded webinar series. Today, Amanda Gizzi, Director of PR and Events of Jewelers of America, and I are co-hosting a session on uncovering the hottest jewelry trends for 2024. Before we get the webinar started, I want to let attendees know that if you have a question, you can type it into the Zoom Q&A box, and I'll be back at the end of the discussion to share the questions. Also, today's session is being recorded, and it will be available on the National Jeweler website in a few days. Now I'll hand it over to Amanda to introduce our panelists and to get the discussion started. I'll be back at the end to field any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren. Welcome, everybody. I know everybody's just hopping on, but we're super excited to have this fun discussion with everybody today about jewelry trends for 2024. This is obviously a very interesting topic for so many reasons, but there's so much happening in the industry right now and what's happening in pop culture and so many things that really do influence these trends. So I'm delighted to be joined by Randi Molofsky, who is the founder of For Future Reference, a development agency specializing in sales, marketing, and PR for independent designers. So welcome, Randi.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Lauren. Nice to be here, you guys.
And momentarily we'll be joined by George, who is affectionately known as George the Jeweler. He's having some technology issues, so he'll be joining us momentarily. And he's based out of Detroit. So we're excited to welcome George when he is able to hop on. But in the meantime, I'm excited to talk to you both. Lauren, a lot from the gemstone market. You're constantly covering for NJ and all things trends, really. I know that you're a huge part of the editorial team. So I'm excited to have you sort of join into this conversation with us as we sort of kick off by talking about where we've identified trends. This was one of the questions that actually came in advance of the session today, really, asking about resources. Where should people go? What do we look for when identifying trends? Obviously, there's so many different things that really affect trends today. And, I think we all know that there are different levels of what we consider to be trends, macro trends, micro trends, these really long-term trends is where I sort of feel are the true opportunity for jewelers. So it's less of the one-hit wonder type of micro trends, but really diving into what makes a long-standing trend and what do you want to invest in as a jeweler. So wondering if either of you want to talk a little bit about trends specifically before we dive into, what the trends are.
I mean, I'm happy to start.
Yeah.
I'm lucky because, I work with a big selection of independent jewelry designers. And so I work with about 9 brands. And so it's funny, even just from my perspective, working with those brands, I see like little micro trends that happen from time to time, whether it's a color palette or whether it's a style or certain necklace lengths or whatever it may be. You kind of see that stuff that's happening on a small level within the showroom. But I'm also lucky enough to, travel around quite a bit, go to trade shows, go to the Gem Fair in Tucson, go to a lot of places where you're able to see kind of a wide swath of people doing things all at once and have those conversations about which gemstones are trending, or, you see a certain cut that maybe is happening. And so I find all that stuff really interesting. But if you're just like a layman and you're interested in like seeing what's going on in jewelry trends and right now, I mean, truly a thing you can literally do is truly type into Google, like spring 2024 jewelry trends, and every single magazine does their own trend roundup. So you can literally click through, you can see what Elle says or what Vogue says or what JCK says or what National Jeweler says, or, whomever. There's all of these different. And that's kind of a nice way to start. And that probably will also introduce you to some new designers that you don't know about. So I think that's really cool. Another great thing to do because I do this from time to time too, just to see what's like popping out there in the industry. There's some incredible retailers out there that work with tons of different brands. If you go to their what's new section on their websites, you can get a feel for what's just launched, like what are the things that these stores picked up because they probably saw some sort of trend happening or something in the marketplace that made them think that their customers would be excited about it. But that's always a fun way, I think, to look through and see what these tastemakers are choosing for their stores, because it'll probably trickle down and become a trend if it's not one already. So that just new section on retailers' websites is an invaluable resource to see what's happening out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Lauren, anything you want to add on that?
Yeah, no, I think that you kind of hit the nail on the head with the trade shows, just going and walking around and like, you see the same, not the same thing, but like the same general shape or the same general design a couple of different times kind of scattered out the show. That's a good idea. But I mean, one thing that I like to do, because we don't just go to trade shows, we also go to a variety of press events as news. And so we get to see these new collections sometimes before anyone else gets to see these new collections. And one thing that I've really enjoyed is looking at what the people are wearing that are attending. So like the people attending these shows, like,
Guys,
hi.
I'm so sorry I'm late.
No,
okay.
hey George, how are you? We're just talking
How are
about
you?
general trends, and we're excited that you're able to hop on with us today. So before we kick it off into really specific trends, we're really just trying to dive into what makes a trend.
Okay.
So Lauren's just walking us through how she identifies trends for National Jeweler.
Okay, amazing.
Yeah, so it's fun, especially at trade shows. You get a kind of a wide variety of people that are involved in different aspects of the industry. So, I like to ask designers, like, what are you looking for your designs? And then also asking retailers, what are you looking for your inventory? And sometimes there's some overlap and sometimes there's not. So that's really interesting too, is to, at these bigger events where they are fashion focused or people are, dressing their best, to just kind of take a look at what other people are choosing to wear, what they're choosing to style. And I guarantee you'll see some scattering of the same things.
Yeah, Randy, when I first started in the industry, it was like you had to go to all of the fashion events, you had to go to all of these different things to really have your finger on the pulse. And now it's amazing how much things have changed, how quickly information is disseminated to consumers. So that trend cycle has changed so quickly. So when I'm taking a look, I'll literally go do exactly what you said, like even not even looking at jewelry trends, looking at fashion trends. How are fashion trends going to impact what people are wearing? It's like, okay, here's what all of these magazines are saying. Okay, here's where the common denominators are. Here's what this person's saying, this person's saying, this person, and this person is saying. And when all five of those people are saying the same thing, it's like, okay, now we're on to something. So sort of the same rules apply for jewelry trends. It's like, okay, when you start to see something enough, that we're, reaching that critical mass of like, okay, this has real power versus just like a little blip on the radar.
I agree. I also, I know I'm kind of hopping in the middle of a conversation here, but I always listen to my clients because I feel like I have a bunch of clients, you know what I mean, who will ask me for like a specific thing. And I think a lot of this industry is, being there for your client, listening to your clients, listening to what they want. And I am really inspired by my clients and what they ask me for. Like, for example, one of my best sellers was this diamond mirroring medallion that I made, which of course is an original idea. But the way that I worked with this client, she kind of gave me like a new twist on it and it kind of became like a thing. So a lot of my clients kind of, I feel, inspire me to create and kind of give segue into current trends, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that's a really good point. And being able to put your own unique spin on something that might not be a new idea. It's like, how do you stay true to your voice? I know, Randy, this is something that you're constantly working with your brands. It's always a pleasure to get to watch Randy in action and like walking around with designers at shows too, because it's fun to see that relationship and that dynamic. You're constantly in the ear of your brands too, to helping them, stay true to their brand look and identity.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's a really important part of all of it, is that, you're never trying to chase trends by any means. And it's more about sometimes, yeah, it's, if there is a certain trend, as I said, maybe a necklace length that's happening or an earring shape that's happening, sometimes it's worthwhile to do something in that vein to capture what's happening in the moment, but staying very true to your own brand ethos is kind of the most important thing when if you try to hit a trend like that.
Absolutely. It kind of like gives you room to explore the territory. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely. So let's dive into a couple of these trends. I will say that we have a long list of questions that have come in before the chat started from the attendees on the call. So I'll leave a little bit extra time for some of those questions. But I want to start with a quick little series of your top threes, just to get a finger on the pulse of what you guys are seeing in some of these categories. You don't have to go into too much detail, but just sort of give us a quick hit of what you really see are happening. So if it's, one or two or three, that would be great on any of these things. You don't have to go into three for each of them. But let's kick it off with a general trend concept of what are you noticing are your top three trends for the upcoming summer, like spring, summer season?
Who's going first?
George, go ahead.
So I think it might be just like this time of the year. I think the weather's getting a little warmer, but anklets, specifically gold anklets, even if it's like layered, have been, and like I said, it could just be like a year thing because everybody's switching up their hoodies for tank tops and tees, and you know what I mean? And I did notice that a lot of the fashion shows this year, we had a lot of short shorts, which leaves room for a lot of anklets. I think I saw like Alexander McQueen, Prada, Gucci, they were all like really short shorts are back. So I definitely have noticed a lot of anklets. Chokers are here to stay. I'll say that. Even from like all the award shows, everything. I'm seeing a lot of shorter necklaces, a lot of collars, a lot of cuffs, things like that. We're getting a really like 90s inspired moment with like herringbones, which I have an example somewhere, but whatever. And then face jewelry. I just did a collaboration with Velveeta, which was really cool, and we kind of made like a lip cuff kind of a thing. And then ever since I did that, all I'm noticing, I know there's a word for it, but all I'm noticing is lip cuffs. So, and like different face jewelry. I think we're getting to a point in society where people are just a lot more comfortable and feeling free to express themselves and really, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Be your own unique self kind of a thing. And it just, I'm seeing it everywhere after I did it. So maybe it just like brought my attention to it. Like even at the Grammys, like Fantasia was wearing like this really cool lip thing that went all the way down her chin, all diamond. It was so cool. So I would say that those are like my top three: anklets, chokers, and face jewelry, whether it's like a nose ring or like a lip cuff.
Yeah, George, can you tell everybody a little bit about that collection? What materials is the collection in? How did this come about?
So it was kind of like it kind of just like happened out of nowhere, and I was like, Velveeta, I eat Velveeta like every day. So it was kind of like a really exciting collaboration that came about. I brought one with me to kind of show you guys like the packaging was really cool, and it was like a cool fresh idea. We did it in 14 karat gold, and it's kind of just like a lip cuff.
Very cool. It's like the
Yeah.
Velveeta drip. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a really cool, unique piece. And like I said, I think people are just in a place, especially us as society, I think is a better way to put it, are just more comfortable being ourselves and able to express themselves without being like, oh, what are people going to think so much? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely. Randy, what are you seeing?
Yeah, I think interestingly, George, I think along that line, I've seen a lot of ear cuffs as well. And maybe it's also this thing of like giving people options to be able to wear jewelry in different ways that it's not permanent. You don't have to have a hole. You don't have to do, it's like you can really mix up your look. You can be adventurous. You can do interesting things. And so I think ear cuffs have been, for me, I also loan a lot of jewelry to celebrities or for editorial. We're getting nonstop requests for ear cuffs that like things that go up the ear, whether it is just like cool chunky things. And I think that's a way that expressing themselves. Yeah. And then, I also am seeing certainly shorter necklaces. I mean, I'm kind of wearing one right now, but I think this length is really hot right now. I think there's also this thing like in pop culture with the Truman Capote swans look, and you're seeing all this gorgeous jewelry and these kind of bigger necklaces and clip earrings, like a button earring or a clip style. I think those are coming back as well. I really expect to see a lot more of those kind of a larger earring size, something that sits on the ear, sits up on the ear. And I think that style of jewelry that's like a little bigger, gem heavy, cool shape, I think that's happening too. Which I'm excited about because it has that vintage vibe, which I'm very into, and I collect and sell vintage jewelry as well. So I see that coming back. So that's a fun one as well. And also there's a lot of torque necklaces happening right now too. Whether the torque itself is gold, sometimes it's more of a leather look, but just like a bigger pendant hanging from a shorter cord or a collar. There's a lot of that happening as well, which I like because again, it gives you options. You can switch it out. You get one torque or leather cord, and you can put all different kinds of charms or pendants hanging from it. And I think it's, again, this idea of options and mixing things up and being able to use your jewelry in different ways that people are really liking.
I
Definitely.
really like that the shorter length too, because I style a lot of celebrities. I do a lot of things like that. And I love to, work with different layered necklaces, different elements. And so I like that the shorter chain is kind of in style because I almost look at the neck as like a canvas, like an empty canvas. So, now that people are wearing shorter chains, it kind of is just like a cool element to have, like a piece that's sitting up here, and then you can have one at 16, and then you can have one at 18, and then you could do like a longer one at 22 inches, and it ends up looking really beautiful and textured.
Yeah, I love that it actually opens up the opportunity for different necklines too. Like it works with pretty much everything, which is nice. Like when you get into the longer necklines, not every clothing neckline works with a longer necklace. So that's interesting.
I've had a lot of people for their weddings even start requesting, which is a little bit more unusual too, to see, chokers and stuff like that on weddings. But I've had a lot of brides come to me and, ask me to, let's do, a 14-inch choker or collar. I want it to sit, really high. They'll have like a mermaid style bridal wedding dress, and they don't want to do anything that's too detracting, this and that. So I've even done like thin tennis necklaces, as a collar for their wedding day, or even, necklaces that are kind of almost like a diamonds by the yard that hang from the back and go down. You know what I'm saying? And you have like a cool little piece in the back. I've been doing a lot of that lately too, which is kind of cool.
That is cool. Yeah, I like the return of the shorter necklace for wedding jewelry for sure. Lauren, what are you seeing?
So I can kind of speak from the gemstone world, and also I kind of my age and maybe slightly younger. My sister is 21 and really getting into jewelry and not necessarily the high end stuff. So I think kind of for her generation and maybe the younger end of my generation is also kind of getting into vintage jewelry, but like in a retro way. Like I think retro jewelry is really having a moment with kind of a younger crowd. Some bolder colors. I saw um honestly at the past 2 or 3 shows like lots of enamel, but not in like your typical colors, like a wide range of unusual colors like mint greens, and Melissa Kay does that really well. And so I see that being a trend. And then also, like Randi mentioned, the big gems, kind of just like statement gems set in like gold or platinum, but just like pops of color, I think is gonna be a big thing. And ceramic too, along with enamel, lots of cool colors in ceramic as well. And then I also, more on the gem side, think that summer just always kind of brings out pearls. I think pearls when I think summer, and I see them too around the holidays, also. But I think just kind of the beach sand vibes of summer make people kind of bring out their pearls that they may not have worn the rest of the year. But you know, I see it less in like a finer pearl and more in like a freshwater pearl, like an organic shape that you can pair with color or kind of wear in a fun new way. I think both of those things are going to be big in spring and summer too.
100%. You know, it's so funny. I actually put together a necklace with organic pearls that was all different colors. Because I started noticing a lot of colors too, like Ralph Lauren, this and that. So I actually put together like a pearl necklace that's all different colors, all organic shapes. I totally agree with you. I totally see that trend. I don't know what it is, but we are liking beaded, we are liking colors, and we are liking pearls. That is completely on board with you.
Beads too, and I really hesitated to kind of say that because it still feels new, like I'm not sure if it's gonna catch on, but I
Yeah.
saw beaded necklaces on the runway, like
All
Ralph
over.
Lauren had beads, and I was
Ralph
like,
Lauren.
I'm not sure what's going on,
All
but
layers,
yeah,
yeah, that's so funny.
yeah.
I felt the exact same way that you did about it. That I was like, are we really gonna? Okay,
I love
okay.
a bead. I think it's youthful. I think it's fun. I think it's low price point. I love beads. I
It's
hope
done
they're here to stay.
the right way. I think it looks really beautiful. You know what I mean? There's ways that you can go overboard, but I think if it's done the right way, I think it can look really beautiful and really cool. You know what I mean? You can even pull out like your cool turquoise pieces. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, definitely colors and definitely beads. I'm totally on board with you, and I felt the exact same way as you.
Well, Harwell Godfrey is like the queen of the bead, and I like cannot get enough of it. Like, every time I see one, I'm like, I need it. It's on my list.
Yeah, it's a nice foundation piece for other things too.
Yeah.
So you can mix beads in with lots of other stuff, which I love. Yeah, the way Harwell Godfrey does it is there's, you know, you can add charms, you can add all kinds of stuff to it. But even so, we've seen a lot of men really into beaded jewelry as well. One of our brands, Mateo, does a lot of that, and we are constantly learning strands of turquoise or coral or not coral really because it's too expensive now, but onyx, and those types of things, malachite beads. So those great opaque stones, I see men really gravitating towards as well, and pearls too. I mean, the guys are wearing pearls all the time. So pearls, I think, are really here to stay in a contemporary way, in a modern way, and all different colors of pearls, ombre strands, all, you know, all different kinds of things. But pearls are still huge right now.
So Randy, you just touched on something. Let's talk about men's jewelry a little bit more, because I feel like it's a huge discussion point right now, with men wearing sometimes more jewelry than some of the ladies on the red carpets. And also just the fashion trends changing so quickly for men. I think we're seeing less hesitation to cover men's jewelry for men to wear fine jewelry and to have there be a little bit higher end price point for men. So let's talk about that a little bit. What else are you seeing? You mentioned pearls and beads. What else
Yep.
are we seeing for men's jewelry?
You know, great rings. I think men are very open now to doing a fabulous signet ring, to sometimes with or without stones, but I'm seeing like signature statement rings with a big gemstone that men are gravitating towards as well. A lot of times it is those opaque stones, the lapis, or you know, something along those lines, but still we're doing some other fabulous jewelry with, you know, unheated tanzanite, or you know, there's all kinds of options for men, and I think that they're open to doing a spinel, like maybe a gray spinel, or you know, other cool gemstones like that. So I mean, for men, and what's interesting too is, again, so many of the collections that I represent, they're really genderless. So men and women are picking up the same pieces and wanting them for different reasons. But I see, you know, I have collections that men and women are literally buying the exact same pieces, the same scale. They just wear it in different ways. You know, a guy might wear a ring on his pinky, and a woman might wear the same ring on her, you know, pointer finger. And so, but you know, but guys are really, they're coming in strong, honestly, and they're really wanting more jewelry today than I've ever seen. Truthfully, especially necklaces too. Guys are really wanting necklaces right now and wearing a lot of necklaces. So I think it's fun and exciting.
Okay. George, what are you seeing?
I actually completely agree with you, and I think it kind of touches a little bit what I was mentioning earlier, that I think as a society, we're just kind of becoming more comfortable and feeling more free to express ourselves. Um, I I'm wearing like a women's, cross short 16 inches, and it's like one of my favorite pieces. And when I wear it, it's literally like a little mini diamond cross. Everywhere I go, everybody's like, "Oh my God, that looks so good on you." Um, and I think people are just in a position where they're more comfortable to experiment, more comfortable to go out, trying something new. They put a piece of jewelry on there, like, oh, this actually looks better than I thought it was going to. So that said, yes, I agree. There's a lot more freedom, and I'm definitely seeing a big significant increase in men's jewelry and an interest in men's jewelry. Um, yeah, I think it's great. I think it's great.
I feel like it's starting at a much younger age too.
Yep.
I have a 13 and 14-year-old at home, and both of them, all of their friends wear jewelry.
Oh,
They
that's
both
so
wear
cool.
gold chain. Both my kids wear chains. They both will wear multiple different types of chains. All of their friends want chains. They're all getting chains. So it's like they're
Oh.
wearing a lot more, and even just to be questioning, like, oh, I could wear that pearl necklace, or I see a little short amethyst necklace, or they're just more open to your point, George, of like being comfortable in their own skin, and there is no gender
Yeah.
roles
I,
for them with jewelry, which is great.
pearls, and there's just even on I thought I think it was the Grammys. It was the Grammys. Lenny Kravitz and Babyface both had like huge chunky cross. I'm seeing a lot of crosses more. I mean, the cross is always a beautiful piece of jewelry to have, but I both of them had like two big layered cross necklaces, and it just looked so cool. And even like the men are layering the chains, which is kind of new. You don't really see that too much. Lenny's always kind of like experimenting and trying different things, but it was really cool to just see these two cross pendants on both of them.
Yeah.
I even
Lauren,
see guys like curating curating like their ear story. You know what I mean? Like, I know a lot of guys who are like, wait, they have more than one hole. They're like, what looks good with this? Like, should I do a stud? Should I do a little hoop? Should I do a little dangle? Like, I'm seeing so much more variety in that, and guys actually literally being interested in like curating their earscape, which I think is cool. You
Yep,
know?
I see.
Yeah, I agree, and that was going to be the one thing I added, that is that kind of what started off, or at least in what I think was part of the catalyst of pearls being really accepted in men's jewelry, is Harry Styles. I want to say it was like 2018 or 2019. He wore like that single pearl earring to the Met Gala, and it was just like it like launched off all of this interest in pearls and men's jewelry. And like, as you can see, they're all over the award shows. Like, it's clearly caught on and it's working. But I think it's interesting, what I was going to say wasn't pearls, but the single earring I've seen. And even Lagos has a men's only collection that's fairly new, and which is funny. I was talking to them about that, and their jewelry that they have is generally pretty unisex anyways. And they mentioned that they were like, men are already shopping here. We just wanted to give them something with a little more masculinity to it if they wanted that. But that collection has like, I want to say 4 or 5 just like single earring choices for them to wear. I mean, they sell them that way. So I think that that's interesting too.
I
Yeah.
actually all of my earrings as you can buy it as a single or you can buy it as a pair. That's how I do it online now, because so many people were just like, "Oh, can I just get one?" That I just honestly switched it up and just started selling it as like, "This is the set price. This is the individual price."
Yeah.
That's smart. And that's a great way to talk about when we talk about merchandising trends. Like, how can you sell more of a trend? It's like zero in on something that small of a detail of like, people are wearing a single earring, or they want diversification with their earrings on each ear. It's like, how can you do it? You sell them as singles, don't
Yep.
get people to buy a pair.
Yep.
That's a great point. I noticed too, like Super Bowl, everyone was talking about Super Bowl jewelry. Everybody, of course, with Taylor Swift and Blake Lively, and all of the discussion around what all of the ladies were wearing at the Super Bowl. I couldn't take my eyes off of the players, because they're wearing chains and huge diamond studs underneath their helmets. It's like wild to me, the amount of jewelry being worn by the athletes while they're playing. Like, they are just, it's such a huge part of who they are that they're playing with it on too, which is incredible to see. So let's talk a little bit more about the gemstones, dive in a little bit. Lauren, you mentioned not specific gemstones. Wondering if you could tell us a little bit about what you're seeing, and everyone on the call, what you're seeing for specific gemstones for 2024, or even just color waves.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to talk about this. So I just got back from Tucson, so this is like fresh on the brain. So I think that there's a variety of things. Blue as well. I'll start with color.
Okay.
So across the show, green was huge. I think green's going to continue to be huge. A few different reasons for that, but one, it's so versatile in the stones that it comes in. I mean, you have emerald, which is, you know, good, fine quality emerald is top of the line price point, but then you have mid tier, you have low tier. I mean, you have everything from demantoid to garnet to jade. I mean, it's just, there's a variety. So I think green's going to continue to be big. I saw a lot of teal. Some people said, I mean, pretty much everyone agreed that it was having a moment. Some people think it's maybe on the way out, but lots of like greenish, bluish tones. Pink was also still big. I'll leave it up to you if you think it's Barbie movie motivated this far out from the movie. A lot of people do still think that, but also pink is just such a vibrant, bright color. I think maybe getting closer to summer, people tend to lean more towards the bright colors. Could be a reason. It also comes in a range, everything from your baby pink morganite to like bright, searing pink spinels. So maybe that also. In terms of actual gemstones, tourmaline was so big, so popular. So many great collections out there utilizing tourmaline. Pippa Small has an amazing tourmaline collection out now, multicolored, lots of organic shapes. Sapphire, still very popular, still big. And spinel was the third. And kind of one thing that all three of those stones have in common is they have such a wide color palette. I mean, you can find all three of those stones in pretty much every color of the rainbow. Now, some of them are a little harder to find, maybe a little more expensive, but they come in such a broad range of colors. And I think that that is kind of leading into this people wanting something different, something new, something no one else has. Like you just have the ultimate choice, like the ultimate pick when you work with a stone that comes in so many different colors. I think along with that, not just, you know, different colors being utilized, but lots of different like cuts, and not just like your cushion versus your princess, but like organic shapes, like them being smoothed and rounded out into like cabochons, but not just like the kind of like marble looking cabochon you would think, like even different types of cabochons, like some with pointy ends or some that are like stretched out and long. And so I think just like it's just a universe of options, and that's kind of what people want. They want to be able to design something or pick from something where the odds of someone else picking the same thing or even having access to the exact same thing is so low. So I think that's kind of the basis of what I came back thinking from Tucson.
Anyone else want to weigh in on specific gemstones that you're seeing for 2024?
You know, I feel like we kind of touched on pearls a little bit, which I know isn't a gemstone. I consider it a gemstone. It's not a gemstone. It's a pearl. But we touched, like I said, a lot of pearls. And you know what I've been getting a lot of requests for is the rainbow still. People really like the rainbow ring, you know, with the different color sapphires. I made a cool ring for this DJ. Her name is Kim Lee. And she was like so specific. She was like, I want emerald shaped sapphires and I want it to be a perfect rainbow. And it was really cool. And I think it just, like I said, I keep going back to it. It's just that people are a lot more willing to express themselves, and exactly as she just mentioned, is people want something that nobody else has. They like to express themselves and be unique.
Yeah, I think also when I was also in Tucson, which is just like my favorite show of the year. I think people are more interested in stones that were lesser known even in a few years ago. You know, Lauren mentioned spinel, which I think is always usually a favorite of gem dealers and of designers because they really understand spinels. They understand the quality, they understand the color range, they understand that there's some, you know, incredible things and interesting colors that people don't usually pick up on. Like I was saying, the grays, that kind of color that Spinel offers, which I think is really interesting. I think zircon also is having a moment. And I love zircon. I think it's always had a bad rap just because of the name. It is not cubic zirconium. It's different. It's zircon, and it's actually a really gorgeous stone that comes in a variety of colors. And I think the browns and the warm zircons are having their moment right now. Personally, I'm like obsessed with brown zircon. It's so beautiful and rich and warm, and like it also comes in kind of orangey shades, which I think that's another thing too. Podporosha sapphires, warm colors. And I think that even extends to diamonds, truth be told. You know, there's a lot of, you know, yellowy champagne-y diamonds in the market right now that for a while it was like this thing, there was brown diamonds, but now I think it's actually just more accepted. It's not really something that's so, you know, has to be talked about so much. It's just people are embracing that the different color spectrum of diamonds. So going warmer is not a bad thing. It doesn't necessarily, it's not seen anymore as like, oh, that's just a lower quality stone. People are embracing those off colors in their own right. So I think that's really interesting. And also what Lauren said too about different shapes. I think that's happening in the diamond market too. There's people are wanting things that are cut in interesting, unusual ways. It's not just about that perfect, you know, faceted round diamond anymore. It's really about cool shapes. That's happening in the cutting world too, in colored gemstones. People like Top Notch Faceting, you know, Jean Noel, they're doing interesting, unusual cuts that designers are then making pieces around rather than the other way. So I think stone cutters themselves are having a moment and really influencing like how different and unusual jewelry designs can be using these cuts.
You
Yeah.
said something about you caught me with the different colored diamonds too. I think it was kind of like a strange moment too because I had to like untrain myself almost as a jeweler because people would be like asking like, "Oh, I want like a champagne diamond," and I'm just so used to being like, "Oh, so you want like an owl color diamond on
Right.
purpose?"
Yeah.
You know, you almost had to like untrain yourself as a jeweler. You know what I'm saying? It was a funny moment, and now you have people saying, "Oh, champagne, chocolate, this and that," and we're just used to looking at it like, "Oh, this is just like a not great color diamond."
Correct. And I love that though. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, I love
And,
it. It's
you know,
cool.
especially setting like a warm yellowy diamond in yellow gold. It's
Great.
beautiful and interesting. You can get a stone at a great price, but it's, you know, because some people may consider it off color, but I actually am like totally fine with a lower color grade in a lot of instances because you can get a gorgeous stone with a lot of facets, a lot of, you know, a lot of sparkle, but it's just a different color. So I think it's cool that people are embracing that now. It
I,
offers up a lot of options.
absolutely. Completely agree with
Also,
that.
in diamonds too, like people are loving antique cuts and old mine cuts, and I think that that just kind of goes hand in hand with the like people being more into vintage jewelry than they were, and also at the show, oh, I may be cutting out. Can everyone still hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Also at the show, John Ford, who is the CEO of AGTA, said, the estate dealers are their biggest growing sect of membership. So people really are, I mean, there's all that jewelry out there and looking for new homes. And I saw so much of it at the show, but like the diamonds in that old jewelry and the stones in that old jewelry extremely interesting, and I can definitely see interest going that way too.
For sure. So let's talk about vintage because it keeps coming up. And a question came in before the webinar today too, asking about what eras in vintage jewelry are trending. So are there specific eras that we're seeing that are really being influenced in today's world?
I want to say I keep seeing a resurface of the 90s with like the herringbone chains and the big hoops.
I
That's
love that 90s are now vintage, you guys. It's killing me.
I feel weird saying that too. I feel like the 90s keep coming back. I
Yeah.
wouldn't say necessarily vintage, but I definitely notice a resurfacing of 90s trends.
Right. Randy, vintage queen. What do you?
Yes, vintage is I live a vintage
I can call you
lifestyle.
that, right? Vintage queen.
I live a vintage lifestyle, in general. So, yeah, I think what I'm seeing, and I sell a lot of vintage jewelry, and collect it as well. There's a lot of, people looking for kind of 60s, 70s, 80s, especially those bigger bold gold styles. Um, that's kind of what's been really trending recently. And especially great necklace styles, whether it's like tubagus, Bulgari styles, everyone kind of wants that kind of necklace. And also in the watch sector, like cool old Piaget watches that have stone faces, different colors. That's a hot commodity right now. And so those kind of bigger styles, and more yellow gold forward is kind of what's happening, because I think for a long time, vintage or estate was really focused on kind of the Art Deco, or, not that everyone still loves an Art Deco ring or an Art Deco piece, but I think there's now this kind of movement towards more color, more gemstones, especially that kind of 70s and 80s vibe that's been happening is huge. And so that's mostly kind of what I've been selling and what I've been seeing that people are wanting.
So that sort of takes us into metals. Obviously, you mentioned yellow gold primarily that you're seeing with those bigger pieces, Randy, when they don't have color. Where are we headed with colors, both in the vintage space, but also in modern jewelry for 2024? Someone in the questions, mentioned obviously the high price of gold. How is that impacting, if at all, what trends we're seeing? I'm still seeing an immense amount of yellow gold happening. So what are we seeing for metals right now?
I'm seeing a lot of yellow gold myself. Lately, I've even had a couple clients start asking me to make their engagement rings, like a classic eternity band, in yellow gold, which I kind of advise always against doing that, because I feel like you're spending all this money to get these bright white diamonds. If you're going to do yellow gold, I say, do it in like a clean Tiffany setting, really show the diamond, and then you can match it with like a band. But I'm seeing a lot of yellow gold to the point that it's even touching, wedding rings. Which is cool. I appreciate yellow gold. I think it looks great on, a lot of people. But yeah, like I said, it's even going as far as to engagement rings.
Yeah, I mean, for me, that and just my particular world of designer jewelry, it's been big, huge for a long time, and that's what people are focused on. But I would say in the last year, I've gotten more requests for white jewelry than I ever have in my entire career in jewelry, which is over 20 years. I've never gotten as much requests for white as I have in this past year, which I do find really interesting. It's more people are looking for, it's not even necessarily like I'm looking for a tennis necklace or whatever. It's like sculptural white metal jewelry. And whether or not they care if it's white gold or if it's platinum or if it's silver, they don't really care. But I've seen it come back in a huge way. I'm getting tons and tons of requests. And so and even mixed metals, a lot of people are doing mixed metals. A lot of the traditional, designers that like work in silver are doing a lot of mix, like let's say a John Hardy or a David Yurman or whatever. There's a lot of mixed metal happening in that segment of the market. But I think people are very interested and are very open now to mixing, whether it's in a single piece or it's their jewelry wardrobe, because for a long time, people would come to me to buy jewelry or an engagement ring, and they'd say, well, I only wear this metal, so that's what my engagement ring needs to be. And these days, it's a very different conversation. I see people that come in, they're wearing a mix of stuff. They're like, well, I might want to get my ring in platinum, but I want to have a band with it that has like is in yellow with the color gemstone. And like people are really, really open to mixing. And so I think there's going to be a lot more white in the coming years than we've seen in a long time. People are doing really cool stuff with platinum. It's much more affordable currently than gold is. And it's, very durable. It's hypoallergenic. It actually comes out of the ground white rather than, white gold, which will eventually kind of tarnish and turn yellowy. Platinum does not. So I think people are using platinum a lot now, not just in engagement rings, which is cool. And then we're also seeing a lot of other alternative materials, titanium, which is super cool because you can do that in all different colors. And that offers a lower price point as well. Super durable. So I think there's a real mix happening right now, which is exciting. And as I said, we're going to see more white than we have in many, many, many years, though, in like contemporary designer jewelry.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I think I've seen so much white jewelry, even in the award show circuit. Like, I want to say, the Grammys, there was probably 90% of the jewelry that was worn at the Grammys was white gold and diamonds. Like, it's wild. And I like that you mentioned that it's like structural metal. It just makes me think of like cuffs. Like, I almost said it during when we were talking about what era of vintage jewelry, and I have no idea what era that is. I think it's multiple eras. But cuffs are like having a huge moment. They're all over the runway. I mean, like 10 plus designers have cuffs on the runway and different metals. So like I saw yellow, I saw bronze, I saw um silver/white gold, I saw some platinum. So like the big bolder kind of structural, even organic shape metals, especially in earrings, I think is kind of a big thing too. Yeah.
Yes, I completely agree. Going back to the two-tone thing, I always find it fascinating because some people have a really hard time mixing their metals. It's like that trained thing in our brain that was like, you can only wear one metal and you can't mix and match. So having that one piece of two-tone even allows the wearer to be able to mix and match seamlessly. Because it's like, okay, I have this one piece. It already has two colors in it. So now I can just throw everything on and it's a little bit easier to mix and match. So that's important to know. And the platinum thing is real, like having the platinum prices be so close to gold right now, and more designers learning how to work with the metal to see so many more fashion pieces, not just reserved for, our bigger stones and engagement rings and wedding bands and high-end pieces. It's where we are definitely seeing a lot more of platinum in the space for sure. Someone asked the question about paperclip chains. I think it's interesting. Are paperclip chains done yet? Have we seen the end of the paperclip chain trend?
I love the paperclip chain. I think it's just such a cool chain. I don't necessarily think that it's done yet. I think that we're kind of seeing it stray away from like the classic, just like choker necklace, and now we're seeing it kind of like longer with like a cool pendant attached at the bottom. I think we're seeing a little bit more uses of it. I wouldn't necessarily say that it's out. I just would say that it's kind of being used in a little bit more of a different way.
I think it's a classic chain. I mean, I think if you're gonna have like your go-tos to pick from, like your 4 to 5 staple chains, like George talking about it being a blank canvas, like if you're gonna have those staple chains that you pick from and that's where you start your layering from, I think a paper clip is just a good staple to have, even if you're not wearing it every day or it may not be the trendiest thing at the moment. I definitely wouldn't get rid of it.
I just think it looks good on everybody. I even have one. I think it looks great on men too. I just think it's just a really cool looking chain.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of those items where it's no longer a trend. It's one of those like timeless items. It just is in everybody's collection. It's just one of our standard, chains that we're going to talk about. I don't think it needs to be like the only thing that we're talking about for sure for chains, but it's definitely not going anywhere. A couple other questions, and then I'm going to turn it over to you, Lauren. Are there questions coming into the question field? If you're
We don't have any
Okay, great.
don't have any questions to address, so if you have extras you want to get to.
I have like 10 questions that were submitted before the webinar, so I want to get through some of these because I know that people had some very specific questions. So the first is there room for authentic African jewelers and gemstones to occupy current trends? So, I mean,
Yeah, I mean, listen, I for many years worked, I was the marketing director for a large mining company that we mined in Africa. And there's so many incredible people and incredible small scale mines there. And there's people like Monica working at Anza Gems who are bringing all kinds of cool gemstones to market in a sustainable and a fabulous way, including women miners, women cutters, all kinds of stuff. So like, yeah, absolutely. I think we need to be diverse in how we're thinking about our industry in general. And I think that's one great way. And I'm hopefully working on a project in that direction soon. So I think there's tons of opportunity. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And I love the use of authentic in the question, because that's 100% where we are with all trends. Like, everything has to be authentic. And I think it is such an authentic integration into trends that we're seeing. But I love the idea of, Monica's bronze collection and the gemstones and the women's minors and the stories behind it. And that's what makes everything so truly authentic, for
Yeah, and
sure.
it's great when designers are able to use these, resources, talk about them coherently, have people understand the process of mining and how it's complex, but also so many people are doing such good work giving back to those communities, helping build those communities, building schools, doing charitable stuff. So, you can seek out designers who work with those types of stones and collections and mines that are artisanal and that are geared towards supporting the local communities. So I think that's important as well.
Definitely. Another question is, can you speak on how these trends will impact Etsy sellers and/or small independent jewelers? I mean, for me, it's a no-brainer. I think all trends are scalable. So anytime that there's a trend, I think it goes back to our original question of how can you make things in your own distinct way and in your own distinct voice. So taking elements of a trend, whether it's a choker and making it your way. It's first, figuring out what the trends are and then what fit into your brand and your ethos of the collection. So being able to stay true to your voice.
I think that we definitely, every designer should always keep in mind, the trends that are going on, and like I said, there's not really any rules anymore. So don't necessarily adhere strictly to the trends that you're seeing, but it's always good to be inspired by trends, kind of see what's going on, seeing what's out there. It's kind of like a great way to keep current, is to just keep your eye on things. Like I said, listen to your clients a lot. See what they're asking for, and keep your eye on things like award shows and this and that, and see what's kind of cool, and just be inspired.
Another question from the audience is, what do you look for in oh no, I read that wrong. What do you look for in finding the trends for the new year? Yeah, that goes back to our earlier question about how do you identify the trends. And then another question is, with lab-grown diamonds becoming as accessible as they are, what designs are we seeing for larger gemstones? How are larger gemstones or larger diamonds, especially lab-grown, impacting design? So is there anything that we're seeing with shapes, necklaces sizes, bracelets, earrings that are really being impacted directly by bigger center stones?
I don't know if I would say impacted, but one place that, tends to be a positive point for the price point of lab-grown diamonds is stud earrings. And it's one place where, you think a lot about the conversation of lab-grown diamonds really being an affordable point for younger couples getting married. These lab-grown engagement rings, they're affordable and all of that. But I think stud earrings kind of are wider reaching in age range, where, I mean, you cannot beat a good big pair of stud diamond earrings, and they are expensive. Real diamond studs are expensive. And if you are going on an anniversary trip or you're getting away from your kids and going on vacation, you don't want to take your multi-$1,000 stud earrings on vacation, but maybe you want to dress up. Maybe you want us to look nice and have those big flashy jewelry on vacation you don't want to lose in the ocean. Shout out Kim Kardashian. But you know what I mean? Like, I think that's one place, travel jewelry, where you want to be flashy, you want to stand out, you want to be stylish, but you may not want to take your most expensive pieces with you.
I think interestingly, like where we've seen a lot of this, and it's a better price point, is like Swarovski and what they're doing. They're creating like incredible stuff with like these big crystals that are, faceted like gemstones. And I think that look actually is kind of taken off a little bit. And so I've seen a lot of designers doing like Riviera necklaces or those kinds of styles, or like just like a big single gemstone, but with like slightly lower price point materials like a blue topaz or a a quartz, or a rose quartz or something like that, a citrine. Yeah, so I think there's a lot of that too. Finding those less expensive but still beautiful colored stones, semi-precious stones, and doing that bigger look with them. I think that's been I mean, that's all day long. I get that kind of call in for celebrities who want to wear that stuff on the red carpet, those like bigger semi-precious statement pieces. So I think that's a big thing that's happening too, and it's not as crazy expensive.
Perfect. Any final questions come in before I do final question here, Lauren?
We touched on this a little bit, but I'll throw it back out just in case. We have a question about what we're seeing in high-end pearl jewelry, if there's anything specific there. I know we talked about pearls a little bit, but maybe the higher end price point.
I mean, from my perspective, what I'm seeing is pearls mixed with other gemstones at the super high end. Like, it's not just like a strand of pearls. It's pearls that are in whichever way. It could be strand, but there's other gemstones mixed in. So there's diamonds, there's sapphires, there's whatever it may be. But there's this combination of pearls and other precious gems that I think people are loving that look right now, and are very interested in that. So that's what I'm seeing kind of at the super high end.
I
Okay.
love that's the trend. Yeah, the mixing of like a high-end Tahitian pearl with a beautiful aqua or something like that is gorgeous.
I
Yeah.
agree with. Yeah, I feel like we saw a lot of pearls mixed, like with the Ralph Lauren thing that we were talking about at New York Fashion Week. Just a lot of pearls and unique different stones mixed together. Going back to that beaded look. It's just it's cool.
Terrific. Well, we are almost out of time, so I just wanted to say, is there any final thoughts from anybody? A trend that you can't live without for 2024? What's your personal favorite?
I mean, I'm going
Question
back.
of the day.
That's a
I'm
good
going
question.
back to the necklace. I'm going back to the necklace, to like a structured necklace that you can kind of put on with t-shirts, or you could dress it up or dress it down, but something that's a little structured, more at this kind of 15 inch style, that like with or without gemstones, it could just be, as I said, a gold thing. But like, I think that necklace style at that length is like having a moment right now, and I'm very into it.
I'm gonna agree with Randy on that too. Chokers. I think chokers are my one. I think they're just here to stay, and I think there's more room to be a little bit more creative with them. I did something that was cool. That was kind of half white diamonds, half black diamonds for a client. That was cool. So I don't think that we touched about black diamonds too, but black diamonds are really fun to play with. So yeah, I think chokers are going to be the one that I'm gonna go with.
As a Swiftie, I have to agree.
I love it. That's fantastic. Okay, Lauren, I turn it to you for final notes.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. That was a really great discussion. And my next question is going to return on Tuesday, March 19th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, with how to buy and sell vintage. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and please take care.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.